Hello, everybody, and welcome to your favorite learning show. It is, of course, Mindset Learn Extra, and joining you live in studio today, it is, of course, me, Pumi, in studio with Cheryl. Hello, Cheryl.
Oh, afternoon. That was such a lovely intro.
Thank you. Thanks. Hey, how you doing, though?
I'm very well, and you? Looking
I'm
forward to
very well.
our last grade 10.
Yes, it is
Yeah,
actually.
before exam school,
Yeah,
hey?
it is.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
So, otherwise, what are we going to be doing today?
Grade 10s, we're going to be doing the last bit of our section. We're going to be looking at the history of life on Earth.
Oh, great stuff.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that. I've been actually looking forward to it. Otherwise, guys, I'm sure that you've been aware of our competition that we're running right there on our Facebook page. It is called Get Connected. I'm sure that you guys are getting connected already by ensuring that you enter that competition, because tomorrow will be our last day. So now what's going to happen is tomorrow at 10 to 6, we are going to be doing our last draw. So you can actually get to stand a chance of winning yourself the Sony Xperia or airtime from Vodacom. So make sure that you get voting for your favorite teacher if you want her to be, him or her, to be the best teacher ever. I'm sure that you guys have that one particular teacher in your minds, right? All right then, guys, without any further ado, please make sure that you do keep in contact with us right there on our Facebook page. It is, of course, www.facebook.com/Learn Extra. That is where we can get to interact, bring in all of your questions, and let me and Cheryl help you in answering all of them as far as possible. Right, Cheryl?
Yes.
Great
You've got
stuff.
so much energy. It's awesome. Awesome.
Thank
Are you
you.
ready to start?
Yeah, definitely. I'm
Hey
ready.
guys, that's how you started. Full of energy, full of gusto, full of go. We're looking at our last show. We're going to start. Pumi's going to tell you later. We're going to have a bit of an exam school before you guys start. But it's our last show tonight. We're going to do the last section of our work. It's the history of life on Earth. I'm going to run through it quite quickly, all right, because it's just the basics that I'm going to give you tonight. What we're looking at is our Earth is really, really old. All right, and what we're going to look at is how did it change, all right, or how has it changed, and what has happened through all of these time periods that we are going to talk about. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start off now, all right, with our challenge question. And remember, you're going to need to listen a little bit carefully, and later on, then you might have a little bit of hint as to how to answer the question. All right, it's all about how we date fossils. My challenge question tonight is the following, okay? The following graph shows, let me get my pen ready. There we go, and we know we like pink. You're going to hear this concept of half-life, all right? The following graph shows the half-life of potassium-40 over time, okay? After 3 half-lives have passed, how much of the original element is present in the specimen? A half, a quarter, 1/8, or 1/16. And as I say to you, all right, keep in mind fossil, all right? If we get fossils, then it's going to give you an idea of how we're going to answer the question. Okay, so let's get started, all right, with our overview. When we look at the history of the Earth, all right, there's lots of videos. Go into YouTube, go and watch. There's lots of the birth of the Earth, all right? Lots of videos, documentaries on how the Earth began. Not to say how the Earth began. We know we run into a bit of a quicksand there when it comes to the religious aspects and whatnot. But if we're looking at it from a science point of view, all right? The Earth is really, really old. That's the bottom line. And all the scientific evidence gives us about 4.6 billion years old. And if we look at the Earth today, and if we do science experiments, if we look at the oceans, if we look at the rocks, if we look at all of these things, they are different today, all right, than they were millions of years ago. And quite simply, what we're going to look at is that our Earth, as we know it, has changed. All right, it's changed. And one of the most important things when we look at it is that it's changing all of the time. And in this changing Earth, living organisms, quite simply, need to adapt to this change, or they are going to become extinct. All right, so when we look at it, our Earth change, all right, our continents move, there's volcanoes, there's meteorites, there's ice ages. all of things are going to happen. The earth changes, and that's going to play a role, right, in how living organisms adapt to their environment. So when we look at our earth, all right, one of the things we need to look at, first of all, is we need to, life. All right, the earth initially was not able to sustain life. There wasn't enough gases, oxygen for us. It was far too hot. We would have burned to death with solar radiation, etc. So what had to change, all right, in order for the organisms, right, or living organisms, to be able to live on Earth? Now, the first thing that happened, all right, is that we had to have this very important gas, oxygen, all right? And these oxygen levels, we needed oxygen to survive. And how did oxygen form? Well, if we go back to our kingdoms, remember we looked at the very, very oldest and smallest kingdom, and that was the Monera, the bacteria. And the oldest bacteria, all right, was Archaebacteria. And Archaebacteria, all right, formed these colonies. These are called strobalolites. And you know what, guys? Can you see here? South Africa, we have these. Right, in a place called Barberton, right, we've got these kind of fossils. They used to be under the ocean, right? They are large colonies of bacteria, and these bacteria were able to produce oxygen. Now, if you've got oxygen, what can happen? Photosynthesis, all right? Because you can take in carbon dioxide, right? Plants could take in the carbon dioxide, and what could they release? Oxygen. If we've got oxygen, living things were then able to be supported, all right? Because that's the gas that living organisms need. Second of all, as I said, we might have been burned to a crisp. Oxygen, if we combine 3 molecules of oxygen, what does oxygen produce? An ozone layer, all right? So if we've got an ozone layer, ozone protects us against harmful ultraviolet lights. Now remember, you need to understand that these things occurred millions and millions and millions of years ago. And they took millions and millions and millions of years to form. It's not as if one day there was no oxygen and next day there was oxygen. Remember, the earth is really old, okay? And it takes a long time for the earth to get ready to be able, all right, to support life. Okay, so one of the things, yeah, we've got oxygen and we've got this ozone. So we're ready for life to begin. Okay, life does happen, and I put this one in because when I talk about an ice age, all right, that's the first thing you guys always remember. And that's the Ice Age, the movie, is pretty much how things happen, just on a bit of a fast forward. You need to understand when the climate changes, all right, when we have ice all over the show, what is going to happen? Things change. Climate changes. So if you've got, all right, a lot of ice, can most organisms live where it's very cold? No. So organisms are either going to adapt to the cold, right? But if you remember, those of you who've watched the Ice Age, what did most of them want to do? They wanted to move, all right, to an area where there wasn't ice. And that's going to happen when animals move, right? Imagine if this is just a block, right? And you make all of this ice, and you make all of this ice. All of these animals that used to have this whole area, imagine you now put all of them together in one area. What is going to start happening? Aren't they going to start competing for land? Aren't they going to start competing for food? And when organisms compete, right, you usually have a winner and then you have a loser. What happens to that loser? They die. They might become extinct. They aren't strong enough, all right, to survive. What happens when we have climate change? Geography students, your work comes in over here. Changes the ocean currents. Right? Ocean currents need from cold to warm, right, for everything to work. And if we don't have our ocean currents flowing, ocean currents actually bring nutrients to the food, to the fish. Right? What else happens if it's cold? All right. Again, geography students, when there's ice, those of you who've been swimming in Durban, all right, if you go on the beach and you go into the sea, right, you don't go into the sea and the next thing you drop 800 meters down. You go into the sea and the sea goes a gradual slope and it gets deeper. And that water there, all right, is nice and warm. And it's nice and warm, lots of organisms think, hey, this is cool, and that's where they are. Right, the further you deeper you go, it's colder. And the more extreme your temperatures, the lesser degree of biodiversity, the less variety. Now all of a sudden, it's ice. What happens? The ice contracts, and we don't have water here anymore. What happens to all our fish? Okay, so what we're looking at, as I said, the climate's going to change, and that change is going to bring a change in the animal's behavior. Do they live? Do they die? Brings a change in our conditions of our earth. Okay, the next one. Not only do our climates change, right, but our crust, the earth, we're on plates. Okay, and underneath is this molten lava magma. And what is it? What are our plates doing? Our plates are moving. They're pulling apart. They're moving together. And in doing so, they change the shape of the earth. All right? If you have one large piece of land over here, and then you separate them, all right, surely the animals again need to adapt. All of a sudden, you've got free range here. Now you're stuck on a small, or you might be in a warmer area, but now you've changed to a colder area. So all of these factors, it's not just one thing that was happening. All of these factors were probably happening at the same time, all right? And at various stages, one more so than the other, causes change, okay? When continents move apart, we've got volcanoes, volcanic action. And our Earth, right, millions of years ago, volcanic action was very, very active on the Earth. Not as we know today, right? It's changed. And because of all those volcanoes, life was very different then. So when we have our continental drift, again, what is it? Our Earth is changing, right? It's changing shape. It's still moving. What happens in a millions of years? We might have a different map. Things are going to change. And one of the things that in this continental drift, a word that I want you to learn is called biogeography. Okay, biogeography. And I've used, over here, I've used flightless birds as an example. Okay. Now remember, we are dealing with the start of this concept of evolution, all right? And when we talk about evolution, we're talking about how things have changed over time. That living things that are on our earth today weren't present a long time ago, and a long time ago, lots of things, all right, were present there and died that are no longer present today. And that is almost the essence of evolution, how things have changed. So now, how do we prove, other than all these plates, how can we say, okay, maybe the plates were, all right, once joined? If we have a look at this map, once you divide the map almost in the southern hemisphere, all of these continents, all right, south of the hemisphere, have a particular bird, a ratite, that cannot fly. Yet each of the birds are different. Okay, they look there are similarities, yet each of them are slightly different. And this is how, all right, the theory goes. When the land was joined, all right, you probably had one species of the bird. All right, let me use a different color. Right here is the bird. That's its wings. Okay, I know it can't fly, but there we go. There's its beak. That was the one species of the bird. Now what happens is, if your continents move away, as we can see from the pattern, if they shift, each of these birds are now totally separate from each other. All right? They're each on separate environments. And you're going to learn about this in matric, all right, about a process called speciation. What happens is they developed, all right, on their own continents. And because the continents were different, each of them show the slight variety, right? So they all have this big flightless birds in common because one developed here, one here, because the continents, continental drift, all right, they now are different species. Because if I have to bring them together, they are so different, all right, that they no longer can mate. And the species, all right, is the definition of the species is two organisms that can mate and their offspring are fertile. Now, also, I think for most of us, right, this is far more easier to understand because it's the one thing that we can see and to a certain extent we can touch. We know that the earth has changed because we have these pictures, right, all these structures, these creations in rock or bone called fossils. And fossils are the remains of what living organisms, right, which we're going to look at just now. So we have these, all right, all of this shows us that the earth, all right, has changed over time and that it's all these mechanisms that are taking place that cause this change. You don't have to know one of these geological timescales, but I can ask you, and you'll see later, I can ask you, give you this and ask you questions for that. All right. You know, us biologists like to organize things, and we do so by using a geological scale. And what it simply is a timeline, all right, showing us from the very earliest, all right, the very earliest organisms, and they've divided up the certain time periods, all right. They usually use the three major ones, the Palaeozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic, right, as three eras. And then they divided up even more so. The ones that you might recognize, Jurassic, Triassic, all right. If you think about that, and if you have a look over here, you will see those are when the dinosaurs, right? And we can use this time scale to show us, right, when the most earliest organisms existed, and there are the fossils that we found that we can date it, and how we see this change, all right, in organisms over time. I think we're ready for a break because I'm looking there and
yes, absolutely.
And my tongue is going, water.
You know, but anyway, I've got this coolest competition that I need to tell you guys about. I'm sure that you heard about it, Cheryl. It's called Be a Bright Spark.
Yeah.
So grade 10s, if you are 17 and older, please make sure that you join the competition by simply logging onto our Facebook page. When we return from the break, I will try and tell you a little bit more about it so that you can actually stand a chance of winning yourself a cool Chevy Spark. So it is a bright spark, exactly.
Yeah.
So please, guys, make sure that you do all of that and more. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back, grade 10s. From that short ad break, I'm sure that you got yourself a glass of water, because that's what I did during the break, because I'm feeling quite thirsty. And you know how it is when you're learning, you need to keep on refreshing, you know, so that you can just absorb a whole lot of life sciences. But before the break, guys, I told you about this Be a Bright Spark competition. So please make sure that if you don't have this book by now, please go buy it as soon as possible, because the competition might be closing anytime soon. So please make sure that you get yourself one, and you can also buy and download it right there on your Samsung cell phone. Right now, guys, let's just get back straight to learning, and more details on this competitions will be posted for you right there on our Facebook page. Check it out.
Thanks, Mpumi. All right, carrying on, guys. As I said, our Earth is really, really old, and what happens is, over time, things have changed. Now, one of the things, if we have a look at the history of the life on Earth, it's one word that we've become quite synonymous with. We keep extinction, 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 right, when things disappear. extinction is a natural process, all right? Us, however, killing rhinos, taking its horns, and that is not a natural process, all right? That's just plain mean, all right, and revolting, and you are very, very evil, okay? Got to try and be careful what you say. So when we're looking at the history of life on Earth, all right, as I said to you, our Earth changed, all right? It changes. And all these activities that cause change, ultimately organisms, that good old saying, adapt or die. And that's pretty much what happens, all right? We're going to look at, if we have a look, if you can see here on the board, right, if we look at the history of the Earth, we notice that there are 5, all right, periods in history where, if we have a look here, if you have a look at all these radiating circles, all right, what happened was there seems to be, because we notice over here afterwards, there seems to be this incredible lack of fossils, right? As this things passed away, all right, they died, and then there's almost like no activity for a while, and then we see the activity again. And those are called mass extinctions, all right? And again, when we say the same period of time, all right, let's go back to our geological scale. A period of time, oopsie, all right, is millions of years. It's not 1 year or 2 years, all right? A period of time over a specific period is millions of years, all right? So we have this, when you look back, the most common one, you guys, I'm sure, right, when you think about it, is the Triassic, oopsie daisy, wrong side, the Triassic with our dinosaurs. The dinosaurs were not here one day, all right, and then they were dead the next day. It's a slow process of where unable to adapt, all right, and slowly over millions of years becoming extinct. Yes, we do have organisms that are left over. Not everything dies, all right? Not everything dies, but large numbers of organisms did die when it has the mass extinctions. Some of the theories, all right, or some of the reasons we have looked at: change. All right, change. Our Earth changes. Now, when we've already looked at continental drift and ice age, right, where temperatures change, where the water availability becomes less, where our ocean currents stop flowing, right? But also, one thing I want to say to you is, not one thing is responsible for these mass extinctions. It's usually a few factors, all right, that occur over time. Now, the 2 pictures that I've put in for you here are the first 2, is the volcanic action and the meteorite action, because very often they go hand in hand, not at the same time, but they're symptoms. Okay, our Earth at one stage was exceptionally volcanic, all right? There were lots of volcanoes. Now, if you have a look at a volcano, yes, the lava, all right, plays a role, but I put this picture in because, I've got an itchy nose. I always get an itchy nose, all right? I put this picture in because I want to show you the black smoke, the ash and all of that gets emitted when this volcano erupts. Now, imagine the Earth's filled with a lot of these volcanoes. Imagine if the air looks like that, right? Here's our sun. Can the sunlight get through? No. No sunlight. Where's our plants? There's my plant. Let me draw a little flower. No sunlight coming through. Can my plants photosynthesize? No. My plants can't photosynthesize. If they can't photosynthesize, no oxygen, no food. If there's no plants, there's no food for the animals. If there's no food for the animals cannot survive. All right? So we're looking at a time when, not over one day, over a long period of time, where the sky was dark. All right? Also, the ash filled with acidic rain. Imagine acid rain falling all of the time. Acidity, it changes, falls into the water. It changes the pH of the water. Changes the pH of the water, the life cycles, the breeding cycles of the organisms change. Filters into the plants, poisons the plants, all right? Meteorites, the Earth has been hit by meteorites over time. We have craters on the Earth to show that we have been hit by meteorites. Now, if a meteorite hits, yes, it does, all right, form fire. So that also, with the smoke, the fire could kill. Right, but also if it hits, there's a lot of dust in the air. And if there's a lot of dust in the air, again, our sun, right, battles with its rays, right, to get through for photosynthesis. Then we're sitting with the food and the oxygen shortage again. So if we combine all of these things, right, volcanic activity, all right, with meteorite activity, with the change in the ice ages, with the continents all drifting apart, all of those can, all right, lead to organisms unable to live on the Earth, all right? And what happens? They die out. And in dying out, they then make room, all right, for other organisms then to show their dominance. Okay, the word there would be niche. Now, one of the things that we said is that we use fossils, right, to show us. It's an example, it's something you can see, something you can touch, that you can feel, of organisms that lived a long time ago. They give us a picture, an idea of what organisms look like, all right, because they're no longer living. Now, when it comes to fossils, fossils need very, very specific conditions in which they are going to be formed, all right? So when a fossil is made, we have lots of fossils, right? But only organisms that have a hard body, if I could use that, if they've got like a bone, if they've got a hard skin like a crab, right? Even plants, because of the bark of the tree, etc. If it's got hard parts, it can fossilize, right? Because those hard parts basically don't decompose. So if you're a jellyfish, the chances are, right, you wouldn't become a fossil. And that is, all right, a bit of a criticism that lots of organisms didn't form fossils, so we don't have all the history. That is correct, we don't, right? But we do have, right, records of and examples of organisms that did survive. How do we make a fossil? All right. When an organism dies, it's the key to it is that when it dies, it must be covered. All right. And when an organism dies, what usually happens, it's out in the open, bacteria come and they decompose, because that's their function, all right, to decompose all this and return the nutrients to the soil. In the oceans, it's much easier. If you'll notice, most of the example and most of the fossils were formed in water. If an organism dies, all right, okay, there we got upside down, its legs, and it's covered quickly with, all right, some kind of soil. Now, usually the key word here, all right, the key word here is sedimentary rock. What does that mean? Sedimentary means layers. All right, organism dies, we covered. And if we covered quickly, there's no bacteria. That bacteria can't decompose, right? So the bones are going to survive, all the hard parts, all right, are actually going to be fossilized and preserved, right? And then what happens? Another layer forms, and then another layer forms, and then another layer forms. And each layer, oh, sorry, my nose is now running. Each layer squashes down and forms pressure on the next. Okay, so now we've got many, many millions of years there, we've got the fossil. Then what happens? Our Earth is moving. All right, plates move together or plates move apart and it sinks in and all these layers become exposed. And when those layers become exposed, what do we see? We can see the fossils, right? Or paleontologists or archaeologists, they're going to go and look for the rock and they're going to look for the fossils. And there they are able to see, all right, fossils, the pictures of these organisms. Now, when it comes to, remember we're looking at the history of life on Earth. History means a timeline. So when we come to fossils, there are two ways in which we date them. Okay, the first one. This is the more scientific way of dating a fossil. All right? It's very involved, but just listen carefully. All right, for those of you science people, right, don't worry. Okay. When rock decays, there are certain elements that are in rock, all right? And those elements break down at a constant rate, all right? And because they break down at a constant rate, we use that constant rate as a time line or as a scale, okay? So, for example, if you've got here, all right, this is your organism, it's uranium, all right? When it breaks down to form these little, right, I'm going to just say PB, don't have to worry too much. So it breaks down. Now to break it down, it takes 1 billion years, all right, take this example, 1 billion years to break down to half the amount it was before. We use that as a half-life, all right? So now, to next half-life, all right, takes 1 billion years. It's constant. So it will take another billion years to break down to its second half-life, and another billion years to break down to its third half-life. So all that we're saying is certain elements take the certain amount of time to break down. So if it takes this to break down to its half-life, it's going to take exactly the same amount to break down to this and this. So if we know the half-life, we then are able to work out, right, how old the rock is. If we can work out how old the rock is, we can work out the age of the fossil that is in the rock. Okay. The next one is relative dating. Now, this is not as accurate, right, but we can use it as a judgment or as an estimate. And relative dating is quite simple. It says, okay, remember fossils, layers of sedimentary rock, and the theory goes as such. The layers at the bottom are the oldest, the layers at the top are the newest. So the fossils in the oldest layers are older than the fossils in the new layers. Makes sense, all right? And it is true if there is no disruption of the rock, if we haven't had upliftment or ever. So there is an if, but it does give us, all right, an example. I want to start with the questions. Oh no, before we go there. South Africa is filled with examples of different kinds of fossils, all right? I want you to draw an outline of our country, and you'll see here, or use the notes that I've given you. You'll find them on your Facebook page. And I've made, here we go, and I've put with the letters, I've shown you, all right, where in South Africa different fossils have been excavated at all the different ones. Even look here, dinosaurs, there if you're near Bloemfontein area. Gauteng, human fossils, you should know that. Marupeng, the cradle of humankind. All right, so our country is rich, all right, with fossils as well. So just so that you have an idea of where we find them. Okay, let's start with the questions. I can say database questions here. Let me go through question 1 and I'll show you. Right, if you have a look here, it might be, oh, what's going on, right? But you will see here are all the errors, and let's read the question. It says here, the graphical representation below indicates the development of the vertebrate groups. Vertebrate, we know, has a backbone, all right? From the Precambrian period to the present. Precambrian is just before this great outspring of life occurred, okay? The width of the columns, this is important, the width of the columns refers to the number of species within each group. So basically, the wider the column, the more individuals, okay? Study the diagram and then answer the questions that follow. Hint, turn the representation to a vertical position to observe the width of the columns accurately. Okay, so you can tilt your paper. Right, now when we look at it, the one thing you must be very, very careful, all right? Here, can't see it too carefully, is time, and we measure time MYA. And you will see the very first question says, the time is measured in the unit MYA. What does it stand for? MYA is the standard for millions of years ago. All right, MYA. Now, I want you to be very, very careful when you look at this graph, because lots of you start off thinking that this is the oldest and that is the newest. No. 600 million years ago, this is the oldest. So we're going from oldest to youngest. Do not make the mistake. You guys see 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. All right, and you start here, you think this is the newest. No, that's the oldest, and this is the newest. Okay, so now let's start answering questions. It says here, which group of vertebrates is the oldest according to the graph? So as I said to you, all right, let's have a look. This is the oldest. And now we must follow the line. And if we follow the line, we get to this. See, this one branches off, but it doesn't branch off. I haven't got to anything yet. But when I get here, look what I see. I see this column becoming thicker, which means that there must be a group of organisms. All right? And the oldest one is going to be my fish. Okay, now, there's more than one answer here. So let's just look at the question. Which group currently has the least and the most species? Let's have a look at the least. Now you must be very careful. Okay, currently. Currently, all right, means now. And if it's the least, the line must be the thinnest. Okay, let's go and have a look here. Here we've got fish. All right. Okay, we've got amphibians. We've got reptiles. We've got birds. And we've got mammals. Okay. If I have a look, I would measure it to be sure. Okay. But it looks as if almost amphibians and reptiles are the same. So the least amount of species, remember, the thicker the line, right, the width of the column refers to the number. So the more the width is, the more we're going to have. All right, are we ready for a break already? I think so, because I can see at the back of my head there's a knot.
Before the break, guys, I want to find out, have you tried the challenge question on our Facebook page? Well, if you haven't, please make sure that you log on to www.facebook.com/learnextra. We have the challenge there. Please comment with your answer and give us the reason why you went for that alphabet. Is it your A, your B, your C, or your D? Whatever option that you went for, please provide for us an answer for it. Right now, though, let's take a quick break. We'll see you after this. Welcome back from that ad break, Mindsetters. Please be reminded that this is our last live show of the week. So next week we will be starting over with exam school. So make sure that this is you join us. Make sure that you join us, because this is just not for the grade 12s. The grade 10s as well will be given the grade 11 slot. So we're just giving you guys a promotion right there. You know, taking over the grade 11 slot.
Yes, there's traffic. Woo!
Yeah, hey, awesome stuff. So please make sure that you do interact with us. Send us all of those questions so that we can answer all of those questions that you have, so that you don't get to struggle alone in your space, you know. So we're here for you. So make sure that you stay tuned with us. Cheryl?
Guys, when we do the exam revision, we're going to do question papers from paper 1, and we're going to do paper 2. So tune in, all right? You might get a few hints.
Yeah.
Let's carry on with our questions, all right? We're looking at this graph over here, and they asked us, all right, question of which group, currently has the least and the most species. The least, right, I would give, it's a bit difficult to judge between the reptiles and amphibians. So you can see there the amphibians do look like they are the least. I would use the ruler there to be much more accurate. And then the other one, the question is the most species. Remember, it says currently, right? So we're looking here. This is where we are currently. So we are looking at the widest column, and we can see automatically that the widest column, which shows us the most species, right, would be the mammals. Okay, nice and easy questions. Just be able to read your graph properly. Now it says which groups, so we know there are more than one, existed on Earth during the Palaeozoic era. So now we go to the Palaeozoic era, right, and there we go. So what we do is we take your pencil and draw a line down and draw a line down there, and then have a look what you see. What groups were there? We had fish, look here, we had amphibians, and we even had started, all right, with the reptiles. Look, our birds and our mammals hadn't started yet. So we had our fish, oopsie daisy, let me go back there. Our fish, all right, our amphibians, and our reptiles. During which period did birds develop? Now, if you have a look here, we go to the birds, right, and there, that spot is where we see them. And they asked us during which, okay, read your question carefully, period, all right? And our periods are these ones over here. So you need to have a look at these, right, options. You don't have to know them off by heart. That's what I said to you. We'll give you something like this, and you just have to read from it. So let's go. My birds, the easiest way is for me to drop a line, all right, downwards. I hope that I'm correct. And you will find over here, they started during the Cretaceous. All right, and there's the spelling there for me, because I always don't know how to spell it. All right, Cretaceous stage. Notice what I did. I took my ruler, I took my pencil, and I see this is where they start, and you accurately, please, all right, would draw a line down, and it's almost exactly where the Cretaceous period. Read your questions properly. They didn't ask you for the era, they asked you for the period. Question number 6. Which group, according to the graph, was the most abundant group in the initial stages of the Cretaceous period? Most abundant means lots, right? There was lots of them. So now there's 3 key things. 1, which were there lots of, and at the beginning of the Cretaceous. Now let's go. Right, here's my Cretaceous. Here's my Cretaceous. All right, and if we draw a line up, and we're looking here, all right, we're looking, and we're going to go here. Let's draw a line up as well. And it's asked you which groups, all right, according to the graph, which was the most abundant group in the initial stages. The initial stages means at the start. And if we have a look, there's my fish, there's my reptiles. Wow, all right, there's my reptiles. And my answer, right, is going to be my reptiles. There was more reptiles at the beginning than any other, right? Number B, which was absent, okay? Absent, so let's go to the Cretaceous again, all right? And let's see here, if we go there, right, were there any groups that were absent? It's very, if we have a look here, all right, if we have a look at the question, absent in the early Cretaceous. So early, there we go, I'm looking at this block, let me change the color. I'm looking at this block again, and early is in the beginning, and I notice there, right, even in the beginning birds did start, reptiles were there, but my mammals, right, my mammals were absent. I didn't have any mammals. Okay, had the lowest diversity. Diversity means variety, and variety means the less numbers. So let's have a look at the end of the Cretaceous, which is this one over here. There's my line. Have a look at my line. There's my fish. There's my amphibian. There's my reptiles. And there's my mammals. Which line was the thinnest? Because my question said had the lowest or the least variety, the least specimens. And if we go back again, we will see, have a look. What had the thinnest line? My amphibians, all right, my frogs. And then the last question is, which groups of vertebrates, developed from the common ancestor labeled B? Okay, now have a look. Here's B. What we mean by B is which groups originated from the B. So we've got one line, which is my reptiles. From that other line, I have my birds. And from that line, all right, I have my mammals. So my answer would be my birds, all right, and my mammals and my reptiles. They all come from that same line. Okay. Oh, went the wrong way. Sorry. Okay. The next question, all right, is a clue on the fossils. Now, you need to read it quite carefully. It says the diagram below shows a hypothetical rock profile. All right. In other words, let's have a look here. We see fossils. Okay. And each of those layers is sedimentary rock. Okay. So we know fossils form in the different layers. Okay, now we have two locations. Here we have rock location 1, and on this side we have rock location 2. All right, and we know that between the two is 67 kilometers. Okay. We also know that layers D over here, let's make it my pink color, layers D, all right, and L are volcanic ash. Okay, and all the other layers are sedimentary rock. Now, using radiometric dating, the trilobite fossil, there we go, see the trilobite fossil, was determined to be approximately 375 million years old. 375 million. What do we know? The age of the rock gives us an idea of the age of the fossil. So I can assume that my fossil was 375 years old. Right? The volcanic layer was dated 270 million. 375, 270. The question is, assuming there has been no geological activity, estimate the age of the rocks in layer B. Estimate. If this is 270, you can give me any year younger. Isn't the rule for relative dating the oldest one at the bottom, the youngest one at the top, right? So anything younger than 270. So let's go for 200 million years ago. It's an estimate. I didn't ask you for exact number because I can't. The rocks in layer G, let's have a look at layer G. Layer G must be older than 375, right? So I can make it 400 million years ago. Guys, please go. I don't have enough time to finish these questions. Am I right? We have to finish off. Please look at the notes. These questions are in the notes. Go through it. The answers are there for you. The challenge question, quickly, all right? Your answer would have been 1/8. All right, half-life is first. A half of a half is a quarter. And the third half-life is 1/8. So those who got C, sharp, you got it right.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Pleasure.
It's
Thank
been
you,
awesome
Mpumi.
having you in studio today.
Thank you.
All right, then, mindsetters, we unfortunately have come to the end of our live show for today. Please make sure that you join us again next time right here on Mindset Learn Extra. From me, Pumi, and Cheryl, it is bye-bye.